Well, this morning we're going to continue our series from last week with Dr. O'Brien starting us out. And our new series is Defining Moments of the Bible. We're looking at stories of the Old Testament. And so last week, from turning to God when nothing else makes sense, to now finding creation in chaos. So Genesis, the beginning, meaning the origin. I figure that's a good place to start, right? Not just because it's on the front end of this semester, and it's the front end of this series, but because it's a new opportunity. And maybe honestly for you at the beginning of the semester, this semester is going to be a new start, wherever you find yourself today, this year. And so if you're going to start, why not start at the beginning, right? Well, I would say you can't get much earlier than today's topic, creation. And if somewhat takes the cake, honestly, from the beginning, because it includes everything. Now, I feel like I have somewhat of an interesting challenge this morning. You sit here, and I dare say that almost every single person in this room has heard the creation story. In fact, the creation story is one of the most famous stories in the entire world. It's one of the most famous stories ever been told. And rather you adhere to the beliefs of Jesus Christ or you do not, there's a chance that you are going to know and be able to tell much about the creation story. Even those who may not know anything about the Bible, you have a good chance of knowing the story. So, as familiar as it is, what about it? What can we learn from it? Why is it so popular and maybe even divisive at some levels? Why is it so complex and intriguing? What and how can we touch, honestly, just in 20-ish minutes that takes a whole semester, volumes of books, years to study? I ask that this morning, we take what we know and honestly what we don't know, and we place it at the foot of the Creator. And as you sit here right now, pray silently that the Creator God will ignite some intrigue and insight into the most creative mosaic that has ever been painted, the most amazing equation that has ever been calculated, and the most intricate and detailed, while at the same time most expansive vision that has ever been dreamed. It is the chaotic creation, Captain Crunch, the Kardashians, and Christ. It's the Creator God that is a big God. In fact, I got to help hundreds of kids explore this exact same thing, not Captain Crunch or the Kardashians, but the same thing my first summer of college. I served as a summer missionary in my hometown Baptist Association, and my job, along with 5 other overly zealous and honestly ill-informed college students, was to put on vacation Bible schools for smaller churches throughout the Roanoke Valley in Virginia. And we did the whole get-up, from decorations to testimonies and games and Bible stories and songs. And, of course, there's also amazing creative VBS snacks, right? Oh, we're not talking about the punch and cookies. We're talking about the good stuff. And so we put on these VBSs. And in fact, our nomadic VBS, our herd of 3 sedans, and my dad's small pickup truck, we rolled into each church after church all summer long. And one in the mornings and actually one in the evenings. And so we ended up actually doing, get this, 21 VBSs throughout the entire summer. Let me just say at the end of that summer, we knew that there had to be a God. And if not, we were going to be pretty upset, not going to lie. But it was through these VBSs that we taught this silly little song. And it went like this. It says, our God is so big, so strong and so mighty, there's nothing our God cannot do. Clap, clap. All right? And so we would sing this song with the kids, and we try to make it fun. And so we'd start out, and we would do, say, sumo wrestler style, all right? And so we'd start out, and we'd say, our God is so big, so strong, and so mighty, there's nothing our God cannot do. Woo, woo. All right? And then we would move on, and we'd do like miniature style. We'd say, our God is so big, so strong, and so mighty, there's nothing my God cannot do. Woo, woo. All right, and then we may say, let's do Carson-Newman style. And we say, our God is so big, so strong, and so mighty, there's nothing our God cannot do. Well, never mind. All right, that's probably not what we did. But you get the point. We made it fun, right? And so why do we do it? Do we do it to waste time or just to distract the kids or all of the above? Honestly, probably to get out their energy and excitement. Well, if you've worked with kids, then you know, no shame there. The answer is probably yes. But let's also be honest that there's so much more than that. Did you catch the words of the song? My God is so big, so strong, and so mighty. There is nothing that my God cannot do. We sang this silly little song to teach biblical truth. That somehow, in some way, that even as adults, we have kept reminding ourselves, we have to keep reminding ourselves of the exact same thing. For somehow, in some way, we've got to keep reminding ourselves of the exact same thing. Today, we're really focusing on the first page of the Bible, the first 2 pages. And it starts out the old famous, in the beginning, God created. God created the heavens and the earth. I feel as if there should be this epic cinematic scene kind of playing behind me as we read through this chapter. You know, can you picture it? There's the sun-kissed edge of our blue marble floating in the galactic, this gyrosphere, dawning this new day, right? This epic scene. God created ex nihilo, from nothing, fashioning of life from nothing, but in every bit of power that is our God. The creation story spawns intrigue and debates, honestly, for academics, quiet questions for the bystanders, a world of speculation, a galaxy of questions, a universe of awe and admiration of a creator that is both untouchable, yet desires to be closer than a brother. Our Creator God. Creation's beauty suggests that it's a long laboring of love. Our account being marked by the formula that there was evening and there was morning. I'm not going to read through every verse, but I hope you'll follow along and stay with me. At the end of chapter 1, we see that it marks, or at the end of the first day, it marks that. For it's not written, honestly, to be this scientific white paper. But Genesis was written as a witness to the fact that it is God who made us. Everything for that matter. And listen, we are His. His creation, His desire, His children. My friends, where science leaves off, biblical revelation takes up. Clive Francisco says that without science, religion may be just a superstition. And without faith, science becomes just crass materialism. The account that we have points beyond itself. In fact, may I suggest, it points within. Within our God, within ourselves, and may I add, within every situation that we face. Creator God creates the heavens and the earth, aka everything. The earth as we know it wasn't there. It doesn't exist. What did exist was God. Now, what I would say would really bake our noodle is that while we're in the beginning of this account, it actually doesn't start at the beginning. For there has been no beginning because God has always been there. Take that in for a second. But we do start with the beginning of this universe, and that's where we find ourselves today. In chapter 1 of Genesis, it's not concerned or interested with the question of the origin of the abyss or how the earth could exist formless and empty. But the point, get this, the point is that God decided to create, and there was nothing to hinder or to stop or to impede the Creator, the God Almighty. For God created outside of Himself. We read that the Spirit of God was moving over the surface of the water. It hovers over. Something pretty cool, honestly, is that the Hebrews consider God, in a sense, both singular and plural. God, Elohim, the family name of God. Frequently, the Hebrews would pluralize a noun to emphasize its importance as well as its magnificence. My friends, does God not deserve this? It's sufficient to note that the passage teaches both the unity as well as the plurality of the fancy $5 religion word, the Godhead, the divine deity that we know as God. And if you're keeping score at home, this later will develop into the doctrine of the Trinity. All right, now hang with me. Come back to me. All right, focus in. If the grammar talk doesn't get it for you, sorry, Sobiak and Wheeler, hear where I'm going with this, all right? Hear me. The Spirit, Ruach, of God. Everyone say that with me. It's like something stuck in your mouth. Ruach. Oh, come on. Ruach. There we go. Now we're awake. At least 4 of you, all right? Now we're awake. It's to be translated as the wind of God, the mightiness of God. It's like this hurricane wind that is going and moving around. It's not like that meteorologist Poser that was reporting on Florence this weekend. I don't know if you've seen the video. Go YouTube it after this if you haven't. But he was barely able to stand. Right, he's going against the wind, and then it's great because all of a sudden, a few of you've seen it because you're smiling, and there's the guys in the background, their shorts and t-shirts, and they're just gingerly walking around, and he's just like, and now we're reporting we can barely stand up, and these guys are just gently walking along. That is not Ruach. It is not that. It's this hurricane force wind that chaotically stirring up the abyss. Our second verse, it sets the terrifying confusion of the dark abyss in contrast to the order that is to come. Could we listen to this? Can we jump? Could we potentially juxtapose this situation with maybe another hurricane-esque scene from the New Testament? As the waves in the sea, they crash, the wind makes the waters and waves go over the sides of the boats to encapsulate the fishermen. Jesus spoke with the simple words, "Peace, be still." He speaks and it comes to life. He speaks and creation itself, it jumps. It jumps to attention. As the Spirit, it hovers, and the Creator God speaks, exclaiming, "Let there be light." For the Word creates. For in the beginning there was the Word, and the Word was God, and the Word was with God. And in John 8:12, it reminds us that Jesus is the light of the world. For in Him we will not walk in darkness, but we will have what? The light of life. For the light is the first creation, the firstborn, if you will. In the darkness of life's difficulties, the light of life cannot only be found in Jesus, but guys, it is Jesus. For He is the way, the truth, and the life. As we press on in our creation story this morning, in many translations, you'll see a word called the firmament. Literally, it's to be hammered out. It's a solid surface. In many creation stories, the world, the ancients, they believe that there's this solid sky above us, all right? And above that, there are the waters. That's where the waters were stored. And so they had to cut this window out when it rained, and that's how the rain, this window would let it in. And thus on day 2, our writer may be using concepts that was common to his day and gave a witness to their own understanding of creation. God continues to create, and the earth is forming, and then all of a sudden, not only do we see the waters, they start to gather, but now we see the land, and we see it appear. And the vegetation, it starts to sprout to soon hold the pinnacle of all creation. He is reminding the reader throughout that it is good. Playing back to our audience at hand, we're now halfway through this creation story, which really, if you're paying attention, becomes perplexing in itself. Because, hold on, we now find out that we find the sun and the moon. Yet the author, he doesn't give the Hebrew names for these. He says greater and lesser lights. We once again see our text play to the audience at hand, as the writer would have no desire to encourage in their nature worship, especially as we're calling attention to the true creator of all things, which does include the sun, moon, and stars. Thus making the point that these are not deities found within creation. As we continue to press on, as we continue to read, the earth is beginning to populate itself with the birds in the air, the fish in the sea. And then we come to the main events. I feel like a wrestling announcer, or should I say a wrestling announcer, right? The main events. My friends, while the opening acts have been feasts within themselves, the Creator God has saved His best for last. The entree is not only the main course, but dessert intertwined. God has not come up short or impotent on creativity, but the opposite is evident at every mention of His creation. God now creates a host of animals that abundantly fill our lands, but then it culminates with not only the good, but it is declared that it is what? Very good. We are now created from the imagination of endless possibility. God desires us. God desires you. And so we exist. In Genesis 1:27, God created Adam, mankind, in what? His own image. In the image of God, he created both the male and the female. God created in his own image. Pay attention to this concept. We're not just sentient beings, just because we think and because we reason. For we can plan ahead instead of just going off instincts. We're not squirrels gathering for the winter, right? The proclamation intended so that we are the image of God, and thus we are what? We are representatives of the Creator's will. My life verse is found in Corinthians 10, and it points at everything that we do. We need to bring glory to God in all things. We share our nature with God. An important distinction, though, that obviously we are not God, but we are an image of. Much like we read about this lesser light reflecting the true light of the sun, this characteristic is given to us and not the animals. To be an image is to be a resemblance of our Maker. What are we reflecting, guys? How are we reflecting this? It's important to grasp that this resemblance is not just an outward appearance. Listen, it's an inward consumption. What is this image of God that makes us so unique? It is that we are living beings. The Hebrew word, nefesh, it means a soul. This Hebraic thought is important because it states that we not only have, but we are a soul. Humankind is a living soul, which is the ever-expanding creative image of our Creator God. So why is that important? Why should we care? Why does it make a difference? Because this makes us available to have what? Fellowship and relationship with the God Almighty. The Elohim, the family name of God who wants to adopt us into the family of God. Sarah Young reminds us that we are simply responding to the tugs of divinity that is within us. For we are desired to have relationship with God. And then we are called to reflect this inward relationship to an outward response to the world in which we live. This, my friends, is creation. It's messy and it's organized. It's simple and mystifying all at the same time. I want to show you a chart that's going to help break down this order of creation. If you've had a hard time remembering or kind of following what I've been talking about today, then this will be helpful. So just in case our VBS construction paper, popsicle sticks, crafts, and silly songs, it didn't happen to stick. Guys, Genesis 1, it's highly stylized. You may not have ever recognized it, but there's a specific formatting in these days. The days are linked for our understanding. The poetic assembly shows that there is structure within chaos. There is order. It's done neatly, and the artistic creation that is done neatly is for good. It is to show less about, honestly, what came first, but more about pointing toward the quality of the work as well as the quantity of its abundance. For it all works together. Check it out as you have been. You just got to remember the first 3 days, right? You see the first 3 days on the left-hand side, but when they correlate, it corresponds to those. So with the light, then day 4, it's what shines the light. In day 2, the seas and the skies, it's what's in the seas and the skies. In day 3, with the dry land and the plant life, what is on that dry land and what inhabits it is day 6. And then we have this day 7. You flip the page, the beginning of the new story or the same story, and it's day 7. God rests, but also sanctifies. Day 7. Creation is now over, but the creativity has not fully been experienced. God, who is omnipotent, meaning he is all-powerful, who doesn't need to rest, does he? But what does he do? He rests. Can I get an amen? So why? What's going on? Why would he rest? Most humanity is capable of violating these 2 ethical commandments. Many today easily work, honestly, close to 7 days a week. a reality that many Christians are entangled by. But the other reality is that many do not worship, period. And many still do not take worship seriously. Hear this. Hear this. We become different people if we do not rest and do not worship. And I would also add the vice versa of this as well. Now just go with me on this next part here. What if after God stopped creating, he hasn't finished resting? What if this unfortunately doesn't mean laying down to take a nap? But what if the seventh day has actually never ended? Since the beginning of creation, God has been in his day rest, or shall we say worship. And by faith, we can join him. For this thinking leads us to an understanding that resting in God does not mean, listen, inactivity, but a change of activity. Thus, within the creation of the world, we now possess an ethical teaching to help us understand our place and purpose. Declarations built into background stories, helping us understand our expectations that God now has for us. Though we do not have the capability to create, we have the opportunity for a new beginning. Each one of us has the opportunity to make the world a better place, or maybe a worse place. It is our choice. However, we do get this awesome opportunity and the task of continuing the work of creation, to turn chaos into creation. I want to show you this picture. This is a picture of an illumination we found in the St. John's Bible. It's on display in the Denton Gallery in the library. It's a modern creative masterpiece. It depicts 7 vertical tiles portraying the days of creation. It has gold embellished squares, one on each day from right to left. Remember, it's Hebraic roots. To show the divinity of God is where the gold is placed on each and every day. Those squares are found in the shape of a triangle, pointing to the Trinitarian embodiment of our God. But check out this subsection, the very first day. Do you see the creation, but do you also see the chaos? It's a juxtaposition of this order and order, a balancing in the vastness of space and time itself. There's chaotic geometrics on that left-hand side, exploding from the primeval void of nothingness, and everything all at the same time. The Hebraic words, tovu wabahu, is written at the bottom. It's hard to see because of the light, but on the left-hand side, it's meaning a formless void. The ironic subtlety of the chaotic geometrics is that there is actually math fractals represented in this thing. Fractals being the essence of order and having the ability to predict specific probability of patterns that could show, get this, the growth of a tree, or something as small as a snowflake or as large as our expanding galaxy. The seemingly chaotic expression of randomness finds meaning and now finds order. For while this is not only amazing and intriguing, I'll admit some kind of weird. And you know why? Actually, there's probably a lot of reasons why. But it's because when I look at this piece, there's something that continuously jumps out at me, and I want you to see it this morning. While all of this is amazing, there's one piece, there's one thin gold line striking through it all. This has always grabbed my attention. It's hard to see, but as it's circled, it's right down the middle. Do you see it? It's hard to see actually way in the back. It's hard to see up in the balcony because it's hard to see the presence of God when you are not near. And it's just as hard to see the presence of God in extremely chaotic situations that come into our lives. The thin gold line. God's intervention and presence brings order with chaos, clarity and confusion, and light within the darkness. This thin gold ribbon punching through saying, "Let there be light." My friends, there is order even when we cannot see it. Let that sink in. there is order even when we cannot see it. To find creation within chaos, we must remind ourselves of these simple truths. My God is so big, so strong, and so mighty. There's nothing my God cannot do. The defining moment of the Old Testament can also be your defining moment of this semester. May God create and recreate something in you today.